Hey class, I just wanted to introduce your final lab for Unit 1. In this lab, you're going to make a classic 2D shooter or something comparable. My example and the name of the lab is SkyIntruders. And so I'm going to show you mine, and then we'll go through the requirements of the lab, which are actually pretty loose, and it gives you a lot of freedom to make something similar to this if you'd like to, or very different as long as it matches those requirements. So let's take a look. So in my game, if you hit reset, it places the rocket near Earth and 3 UFOs at the top, and if you hit run, the UFOs go back and forth their way down whenever they hit an edge. You try and shoot them with the spacebar, and you move around with the keys. And if you shoot and you miss, you lose a point. If you manage to land a hit, you get 10 points. The goal is to make it to the end of the game when all the people on Earth have evacuated, but if the UFO makes it to the bottom or touches you, there you go, game over. So that's the game, and here's the requirements. So you can find this on Schoology. All you need in this one are a few specific classes that do a few things that we're asking for. Number one, there needs to be a world subclass. So as you can see, I made Sky World, and it's got to add actors to the world both initially and over the course of the game. There needs to be some randomness involved here. Also, the game needs to either maintain a score or a timer, which in my case it has both, so you could do both if you want to. That will involve using a private instance variable, a public method with a parameter that can be called to change those things from the actors, and it needs to be printed throughout the game somehow to your screen. Also, the game should end and a sound should play. In this case, you can't hear the sound, I think, because I muted it, or maybe you did when you lose, but if the score or the timer reaches some end, either a positive or negative depending, there needs to be some sort of a player actor. In my case, it's the ship. It has to be keyboard controlled and move around without having to turn, which might mean using a different way other than the move method to move. And when you press some key, probably it has to generate some kind of a weapon that's going to defeat the enemies. In my case, it generates a bullet actor. And so that leads us to point 3. There needs to be some sort of a weapon actor that gets created by actor. It can't live forever. It has to have a limited lifetime, and at some point you have to make sure that it gets removed from the world. And when it hits an enemy or an obstacle actor, there needs to be some interaction. Maybe it damages it, maybe it destroys it, who knows. And that brings us to the enemy. There needs to be some kind of an enemy or obstacle actor. In my case, there's a UFO, at least one. And there has to be a kind of movement or behavior property that's randomly determined when it's first made, but then it's consistent afterwards. So in the case of my UFO, it randomly picks a speed, and but it stays at speed throughout until it's destroyed or gets to the bottom. It also, in my case, picks a random frequency in which it's going to just turn around and go the other direction. So I've got 2 things going there that are randomly picked at the beginning, but consistent throughout afterwards. And of course, the enemy has to pose some kind of threat that if I don't deal with it, it's going to contribute towards losing. So in my case, if I don't shoot the UFO, it'll eventually get down to the bottom and I'll get a game over. Of course, we expect that the code will be encapsulated well, which means you have not everything written in one method, but in some different methods that are readable. They got to be designed in a way that potentially maybe I'd want to reuse those methods, and they got to be reliable. They have to do more or less what they say they'll do, and not like unexpected things that it didn't say it would do from the name, or not do the things that its names say. So be careful with how you name them, and also pick good modifiers, either private or public, depending on whether or not they're appropriate for being readable and accessible to other actors. And of course, the last bit is this is a game, so try to make sure it's fine-tuned so that it's kind of fun to play and not too easy. So all that. Some extensions if you would like to. Here's some things you could do. You can make a power-up that would give the player some sort of an advantage. for a little bit of time. So maybe in my case, it would reduce the reload time. Make the game get harder over time. Mine actually does this. The more points you get, the more frequently the UFOs appear. And you could even make the game two-player if you wanted to have sort of a maybe a score going between the two of them or something like that. At the end of the game, it's got to tell you who won. So those are all extensions, and I can give you some additional points if you do those, but those are by no means the requirements. So yeah, that's the design of the whole lab. Obviously, my example fits this very well, so if you were to emulate my example, you'd pretty much get all the points that are necessary, but obviously they're very loose, so you can create anything you like. Okay, so enjoy, have fun with this, and I'll see you in class.